October 1942, Chelston Airfield, England. Inside a dimly lit surgical tent, Colonel Malcolm Cummings Grow bent over an operating table, his gloved hands moving quickly yet carefully. Another wounded airman had just been brought in, a navigator torn open by fragments of German flak. The metal shards had ripped through leather and flesh alike, the aftermath of yet another daylight raid across the channel. Outside, the engines of B-17s coughed as they landed, their bellies riddled with holes, their crews half dead from blood loss and exhaustion. Grow knew what he'd see before the stretcher even arrived. Low-velocity shrapnel wounds, jagged and deep, but preventable. Through the canvas walls, Grow could hear the steady rhythm of another ambulance approaching. The arithmetic haunted him. Nearly 70% of the men he treated had been hit not by bullets, but by slow-moving fragments of flak or aircraft metal. If something, anything, had been between their bodies and those fragments, most would still be alive. As he removed the final shard from the young navigator's chest, a thought began to crystallize. These wounds weren't inevitable. They were a solvable problem. The data confirmed Grow's instincts. That October, medical officers of the 8th Air Force compiled their first comprehensive casualty report. The results shocked military planners. Roughly 70% of bomber crew injuries came from relatively slow fragments, not high-speed bullets. The assumption that German fighters were the deadliest threat was wrong. The true killer was flak, exploding anti-aircraft shells, and the deadly hail of metal they unleashed at 20,000 feet. The German Luftwaffe had perfected flak warfare. Their 80mm guns could reach bombers flying over 30,000 feet, each shell timed to burst mid-air, scattering hundreds of razor-edged steel fragments. Inside those bombers, even small pieces of shrapnel could ricochet through the crew compartment, killing or maiming everyone in its path. Grow realized that if he could protect the human core, the chest and abdomen, he could change the odds entirely. In October 1942, Colonel Grow proposed something radical: personal armor for bomber crews. Not the heavy steel plates of World War I, but lightweight protection designed specifically for airmen facing slow-moving fragments. His sketches showed overlapping steel plates sewn into a flexible vest, inspired by medieval armor. The idea was met with skepticism. Commanders worried about weight, comfort, and cost. But Grow pushed forward, requesting a small batch of prototypes for testing. Unable to produce the armor quickly in the U.S., Grow turned to Britain. The Royal Air Force had experimented with flak vests, but abandoned the idea because their bombers were too cramped. However, American B-17s and B-24s had slightly more room, making armor practical. Grow was connected with the Wilkinson Sword Company, a firm famous for centuries of metal craftsmanship, from sabers to bayonets. Together, they began turning a surgeon's dream into steel. The partnership was unusual: a surgeon and a swordmaker designing armor. Grow brought medical data and an understanding of human anatomy. Wilkinson contributed metallurgy and engineering expertise. The result was a three-piece vest: a torso cover, a lower abdomen apron, and optional panels for gunners. Each plate, made of thin manganese steel, was light yet strong enough to stop a fragment at 1,000 feet per second. The complete vest weighed about 22 pounds, heavy but survivable. By March 1943, field testing began. The first armored crews returned from missions with dented plates and lives intact. Grow and his team examined the vests. The fragments had stopped dead in the steel. Word spread quickly across English air bases. Soon, every crew wanted one. But Wilkinson's sword couldn't keep up with demand. They could only produce about 100 suits per month. The U.S. War Department needed a faster, bigger solution. Grow turned to an unexpected ally: the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Its Arms and Armor Department, home to medieval suits of armor, became the center for research and redesign. Curators like Stephen Grancy studied 15th-century brigandine armor, adapting ancient designs to modern materials. History, once displayed behind glass, was now saving lives in the skies over Europe. By late 1943, American manufacturers began mass production. The new M1 Flyers vest used nylon fabric and refined plate arrangements, reducing weight to just over 17 pounds. Variants followed: the M2 for pilots, M3 for turret gunners, M4 for waist gunners, and M5 groin armor for navigators. Each was tailored to the specific risks of different crew positions. On October 5, 1943, the M1 officially became standard issue for all bomber crews. The effect was immediate and measurable. Studies showed that armored crews suffered 60% fewer wounds overall. Fatal chest injuries dropped from 36% to 8%. Abdominal fatalities fell from 39% to 7%. For the first time, medicine and metallurgy had changed the arithmetic of aerial warfare. Gro's vests didn't make men invincible, but they made survival possible. Then came October 14, 1943, Black Thursday. On the second raid over Schweinfurt, 60 bombers were shot down and 600 men killed. But many who returned owed their lives to the armor. Crews showed medical officers their flak vests, plates bent inward but intact. The vests had stopped death in its tracks. Without them, the losses would have been even higher. By 1944, armor was standard across the 8th Air Force. The introduction of long-range P-51 Mustang escorts reduced fighter losses, while Gro's armor reduced flak casualties. Together, they changed the balance of air warfare. By D-Day, nearly every American bomber crew wore protection inspired by a surgeon's wartime epiphany. By war's end, over 338,000 M1 vests and nearly 100,000 variants had been produced. The program's success was due to unprecedented collaboration: a British sword maker, an American museum, and a persistent military doctor. Colonel Malcolm Gro's work didn't end there. He went on to develop heated flight clothing, oxygen systems, wind blast protection, and psychiatric care for airmen under extreme stress. After the war, Gro became the first Surgeon General of the United States Air Force, continuing his mission to protect those who served. He lived to see his flak vest evolve into new generations of body armor, from the nylon vests of Korea to the Kevlar and ceramic plates of modern soldiers. The legacy of that tent in 1942 lives on today. Every time a vest stops a bullet, every time a life is saved. The story of Colonel Malcolm Gro isn't one of combat heroism, but of insight, persistence, and compassion. He looked at the dead and saw patterns others ignored. He asked a simple question: can this be prevented? And changed history by answering it. His flak vest program stands as proof that innovation and empathy can save more lives than any weapon ever could.